Well, this one's going to be a little bit different. Hopefully I don't get mobbed by the Muppets by the end of this. Hello everyone, I'm Ink and welcome to my Nook, where every week we come up with a new strange monster for tabletop RPGs. Since we have a bunch of new folks here, I'll outline the process of making this week's monster as we go. By the end of the video, we'll have an entirely new monster with art, a name, stats, abilities, and core phrases. We'll start out by drawing 7 cards from the Monster Bash deck and selecting 4 of them to serve as inspiration for the monster. And as we can see from the cards, this week is a bit of a surprise to understate the situation. Still, let's soldier on and see what we can do with this kind of Muppety creature. Unfortunately, this is where I'll have to admit a shameful truth. I've only seen one Muppet movie, the 2011 The Muppets movie. Now, I will say that I have seen Jim Henson's coffee commercials and tons of Randy Feltface clips, but overall, I'm flying blind here. So if I make something that already exists in the Muppet Extended Universe, let me know in the comments below. Though I'd be surprised if that happened based on what's to come. Now, with that all out of the way, let's start out with the lore. Pretty immediately, there's a lot to explain/justify with this monster. First off, how do we get a puppet to work within the classic swords and sorcery world without just saying, well, guess we're making Muppets now? The biggest challenge is to justify a hand-like appendage growing out of the ground. But, funnily enough, there's a pretty easy solution from an earlier video on this channel. The breathing continent. If you don't know what that is, it's a setting lightly introduced in this video, showing up right now in, I think, the top right corner? Either way, it's also linked in the doobly-doo down below. Take a look after you're done with this video. But for now, the general idea is that the breathing continent is a landmass made of living flesh instead of earth. There are also plenty of questions about how this occurred and legends of what kind of creature the breathing continent could be. But for our purposes, we'll use one more aspect of this strange land. Tumorous outgrowths. Specifically, the hands, eyes, and mouths that occasionally crop out of the earth. Let's say that this puppet is diegetically a puppet. On the breathing continent, there could be people who dress up and decorate the hands that crop out of the ground, making them into sock people. Then if there are some eyes and mouth nearby, this creature could have some semblance of awareness and communication. Of course, your run-of-the-mill babbling mouth and wildly flailing hand with a sock on it wouldn't accomplish much. But if some sort of brain were nearby, or was implanted by a meat molder, well now, you have a person, a member of the community, and maybe even a connection to the continent's will if it's a natural puppet person, I suppose. You could also implant the brain of someone recently deceased and see if they could be revived as a puppet. Of course, this has a much lower success rate as dead brains pretty immediately fall apart. And the soul is already gone, but you could probably get some kind of person computer to work. And all of a sudden, we have these believable puppets within the world. Like, what the heck? This goofy idea shouldn't work, but it kinda does? Now that we have the general role of puppets, what about this specific puppet? It's dressed up in fine garb and has a clearly magical sword and shield. So maybe it's a guard for the noble family's mansion. It could be for one of the inner private rooms, like a study. This puppet wouldn't be very dangerous or intimidating, but it could work as a security camera, and that sword could fend off some people. I imagine it would be closer to a taser than anything else. So there you have it. This is a puppet guard used to watch people going in and out of a noble study or private rooms, with a shield and lightning enchanted sword, just in case. Next up, let's get out our monster card and start filling it out. First, the name. Well, we already have some basic words: puppet, guard, breathing continent. Let's see what we can do to dress that up. The source gives us a good word in mannequin, spelled with a K, and guard could become sentinel. which fits more with that watchful aspect of the puppet. Though I think mannequin could be something fleshier. Being set on the breathing continent, how about we say Meatikin? Meatikin Sentinel works pretty well. Now that we have the name, let's sort out the abilities, naming them so y'all at home can customize everything for your table. First off, that sword seems easy enough. Let's just call it Lightning Blade. Next, let's go with the idea that the body you see doesn't actually have the useful parts like the eyes or the mouth. What about split up body? Vision from another angle? Vision of the Puppet Master. Alright, finally, let's build out the idea that this is a computer-like sentry. How about Sleepless Guard? Next up, we have the stats. We're going to be using the 5th edition spread of Strength, Dexterity, Constitution, Intelligence, Wisdom, Charisma, and the number that we'll use will refer to the modifier rather than the stat itself. Strength will put it at -2. When you're literally just a hand, there aren't too many muscles to buff up. Dexterity can go to a +2. Meatikins don't have hands themselves, but the hands that operate them are really good at their jobs, and especially if you're a guard, you want to be able to at least tap intruders with that electric sword you have. Constitution will be at a 4. Meatikins, taking after their Muppet inspirations, are extremely durable, able to stand up to whatever slapstick-based comedy is pointed in their general direction. Also, most of the body grows into the ground out of the breathing continent. You're not just going to beat up the hand and call it a day. The nervous system will still be there to regenerate a new hand from. Intelligence will be at a 1. Meatikins are not known to be good students. You'd have a hard time studying too when you are just a hand sticking out of the earth. Though there are exceptions, like Professor Puppet, the 3rd at the Academy. Though he tends to argue too much with Professor Puppet the 1st and Professor Puppet the 4th. They keep asking about where number 2 is, so it couldn't be very useful. Wisdom can be at a 3. This is a sentinel of the Grand Duke's manor. It must be well trained and watchful, even when the Duke's children try to tell it jokes. Charisma? Well, you know that has to be a 5. Meatikins have little to do all day but talk back and forth at people, and they certainly take advantage of that one thing they can do. Also, the Muppets are all bards, and you can't convince me otherwise. Now, let's sort out the core phrases. These are the sentences that guide the behavior and thoughts of the creature. Do your job, and do it well, or you'll be replaced. This gets to one of the central ideas of the Meatikin species as a whole. They're nearly all artificial, and there are only a few natural Meatikins, so being useful will prevent those artificial ones from being replaced. They'll like you more if you make them laugh. Again, hitting on that idea of prevention of replacement. This also leads them to get that more comedic bent that matches their Muppety inspirations. The breathing continent gives you life. Enjoy it. More than anything, the Meatikins are loyal to the breathing continent itself. This phrase represents their connection and gives a drive that encourages happiness separate from that fear of replacement. And that's that. I'll be honest, I was not expecting such a cool monster to come out of that collection of references. But when the breathing continent came in, it all fell into place. Then, of course, we were able to fit in a few nods to the Muppet inspiration and layer on some world building back onto the breathing continent. This was such a fun time, and now y'all have a monster to include at your tables with stats, abilities, and core phrases. And since y'all have made it this far, it seems that you enjoy what I make, so would you mind wildly flailing in the direction of the like and subscribe buttons? I'll be back next week with another monster, and I hope to see you here. With that, let's bring this video to a close. For those of you with dark skies, good night. And if you have bright days, good morning. whatever part of the world you're from, I hope you have a lovely morning, afternoon, evening, and night. Goodbye!